one. Hi folks, once again here. I'm now going to demonstrate for you the promise of power supply. This is a floating ground Tesla coil power supply designed by Fred Bell. Fred Bell and some of my other information that I may conjoin with this was a NASA scientist. At the age of 8 years old, he was fixing radio sets. His great uncle was Alexander Graham Bell. His father was Alan Bell. Alan Bell invented the automatic transmission and the alternator for Henry Ford. Fred Bell grew up on Henry Ford's hemp farm where Henry Ford lived, and he built a car made entirely of hemp that was running on hemp oil. The oil companies of the Rockefellers did not like that. They conjoined with Randolph Hearst to raise a fear campaign about marijuana, claiming black men were raping white women and a lot of crazy stuff about the use of marijuana. Why? Because they didn't want oil to become obsolete. We'd been a lot better off if we built all of our cars to run on ethanol or hemp oil, which is the cleanest burning fuel oil other than whale oil, actually. And they got together with Randolph Hearst, the big newspaper conglomerate, who owned all the redwood forests. He bought up a lot of redwood forests in anticipation of the laws that would outlaw hemp. And so in the 30s, they outlawed hemp. It became illegal. They suspended that law in the 40s, and there was actually a war movie about hemp for victory so that they could make ropes out of hemp and everything. Hemp is the finest paper that you can make. So we have here conspiracies to defraud the public and to keep us and to cause us pain and suffering in terms of pollution with a use of gasoline, fossil fuels, which we don't need. There's other technologies as well. So Fred Bell studied the shock wave of the atomic bomb at the age of 15. He was recognized as a child genius and went to the Ann Arbor University of Michigan Linear Collider with Dr. Leonard Katz, where Fred got a lot of ideas that would serve him later in his life, and learned a lot about physics and these things. And at the age of 16, which was illegal, right before his 17th birthday, the Air Force came and plucked him and conscripted him, which was illegal before 18. But he went to the University of Santa Barbara, where I went to college, and received a PhD physics under the ROTC program at the age of 17. At the age of 20, in 1963, he was working for the Air Force at Point Reyes, California. California goes out, and Point Reyes is the farthest westernmost point of the United States, other than Hawaii and Alaska. And this was the early warning radar. So they installed this big new ANFS PS38, I believe it was, or 338 radar set. This is the same radar set that was used at Montauk. By modulating the frequencies, people would become sick, they become happy, they become hungry, they became thirsty. This was kind of the technology that the government started to discover in human behavior and how frequencies and electronics can affect your moods. So during the Cuban Missile Crisis, he witnessed UFOs coming down at 15,000 miles an hour off the magnetic lines and going down to the Cuban Missile Crisis. He complained. They put him, after 2 weeks, they weren't reporting it. He was upset that they were not reporting this to the public. He would spit out about destroying government papers and all this at the end of each shift. And they would laugh at him, this snotty-nosed little 20-year-old in charge of the entire system. They go, if something goes wrong, who do we go to? Bell, this little kid, right? 20 years old. He's in charge of the radar set. So he had a pretty big ego. He was the smartest guy in the room on most occasions. And so he went in one day, and they had set him up because the night before he went outside the base commander's house. He had a motorcycle, and he revved that thing up really loud till the lights came on, and he took off. And they knew it was him, the base commander did, so they set him up. The next day he went in, and they were burning reports, and the same thing he did every day. Sir, that's illegal, you can't do that, why are you doing this? They said, Bell, did you see a UFO? And he said, sir, of course I did. We all did for the last 2 weeks every day. And they brought in 2 MPs, they put him in a straitjacket, humiliated him, and took him to the psych ward. And he told the doctor, I'm not crazy. He said, look, tell them to give me an honorable discharge. And from that point, he went to work for NASA on the Saturn, Gemini, and Apollo missions. He was working inside the space capsule doing electrical. And he did a whistleblowing there. And he went all the way up to Werner von Braun. And when he went to Werner von Braun, he got fired. Who's this snotty-nosed kid telling us we're doing no good? Well, he filed suit. And a year later, the guys died on the Cape in a fire. And they came back, they gave him his back pay and with damages. And they said, will you please be in charge of our electrical engineering quality control for NASA? You know, he's what, 22 now. He said no thanks, and he continued to work for Rockwell and JPL on the Saturn rockets, where he said spaceships would hover outside the hangar in Long Beach, and they would send 2 probes that would go down and go back up. So they were watching everything that the governments were doing. So now fast forward to the Tesla power supply with these pyramids. So now I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to show you that powerful ionized field that, when in conjunction with your consciousness, can help manifest along with the crystals and lasers. Light is also very key to the efficacy and how this system works. With the stones, the colors, the frequencies, we don't diagnose the body's illness. We simply flood it with positive light and negative ions and pyramid energy. Pyramids break all 7 levels of all planes, from the physical, the astral, the mental. You've got what's called the Buddhic, or the higher mental plane. You have the causal plane, the atmic, and the logoic plane. These are all subtle frequencies that exist in the same space as we are, but they're invisible to us. As above, so below. 7 energies, tremendous energy. Now, watch, I'm going to charge this, and I'm going to show you where negative ions come from on one level. Where do negative ions normally come from, folks? They come from water meeting air, plants, and thunderstorms. Okay? So when a thunderstorm takes place, the positive ions in the air that are caused by thunder, by all the particulates in the air, will drop to the ground. If you look at the word Hamza, it means, Hamza means 5, Hamza means 50. In the Middle East and around the world, they have names for when these desert winds blow and kick up all this dust. We call it the Santa Anas in California. We call it the Chinook. We call it the witch's wind. In Germany, they call it the Fons. This is known to create positive ion conditions. Positive ion conditions are also created in the body during the full moon. So we have noticed that crime rates, accidents, criminal activity goes up during a full moon because of people's consciousness is affected by the negative ions or the serotonins. So when you have the positive ions increase, when all the dust is settled from the lightning storm, it reaches a potential before that. All the dirt is in the air. Nature creates a reaction and lightning comes. That takes all of the the dust and particles out of the air. We used to build a negative ion machine that you put a cigarette in a glass thing, it would clean it up like that. It was utilizing this technology. Also, Fred Bell, I met a naval general, I believe, or admiral in the Navy. He was in charge of an entire battle fleet, and he was having problems below the water line. It would create a positive ion in the metal of the ship. So Fred Bell created both a positive and a negative ion machine, very powerful for the US Navy. So this is a real technology. And so plants, water meeting air, and thunderstorms. Why do you feel good in the forest? You're surrounded by negative ions being created by plants. Why do you feel so good at the beach, or going on the ocean cruise, or in a sailboat, or by a waterfall? Water meeting air. Negative ions build cells. They do this in the red blood cell of the body. There's an iron, hemoglobin. And as it comes in, it's called the ferrous and ferric exchange. You breathe in this electrical energy which attaches to the hemoglobin. And the hemoglobin is actually shaped like it's a heme chain with two pyramids base to base and a bunch of spiral armfish like an airplane engine. And they have little pyramids along it, and those pyramids give off the electrical charge in the body, and they take on carbon dioxide. This is what powers your body. Now, we can measure negative ions electrically in this form, but in a pyramid, they're actually produced, but you won't see them, because a pyramid is a subatomic level of creating a negative ion effect, which is to supercharge the blood. So if you're anemic, if you have oxygen problems, if you have sickle cell anemia, pyramids are the answer for you. If you have any problem with your blood, pyramid is good. So now, have I turned this on yet? I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to crank it up. This is extremely powerful, and if you touch the wrong thing, it's going to cause a little thing. We're having a little light problem here. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. There we go. So we get back into the safety range here. So I'm going to show you here. I'm going to have him focus in close on one of these wings that create the scalar wave. And I'm going to show you, if you come in close where my hand is getting close, you're going to see a lightning storm. It's not dangerous, but this whole system is charged. This whole system is creating negative ions. And when you sit in here, if you meditate and do breathing exercises, you're going to have some powerful effects. I practice Kriya Yoga. It was taught to me by Mahavatar Babaji, who I met in 1978. That's another story. But this is our quad system, and thank you for listening and hearing how this works today. Of course, you can always reach me through thepromiserevealed.net and my website, thepromiserevealed@gmail.com, if you have questions or if you'd like to install one of these systems. Thank you so much.